This short video will look at why children and young people become more likely to engage in criminal behaviours and why children and young people can become vulnerable to be targeted by criminal gangs. We will also think about what we can do within our communities as part of our roles and in our settings to support vulnerable children and young people and reduce the risks of them becoming involved in criminality. When we think of individual children and young people who are most at risk of behaviours associated with criminality and membership to criminal gangs, it makes us think of the work of both Geoffrey Cohen and James G. March, whose research looked into all versions of childhood and adolescent risky behaviour. In their study involving a national representative sample of over 12,000 teenagers, the two most powerful predictive factors for every form of adolescent risky behaviour and distress were how strong the sense of belonging they had in school and how strong the sense of belonging they had at home. This leads us to think of the three human core evolutionary needs that we all have. 1, we need to feel safe. 2, we need to feel we belong. And 3, we need to feel that we matter. When we are vulnerable, we feel chronically unsafe. Feeling safe is the most fundamental need of all, but feeling safe is not the same as being safe. It comes from a deep sensory level, from being safely held in a network of connected relationships. Vulnerability and trauma destroys this inner sense of safety, and people then become more vulnerable and full of fear. It changes the way that they respond to the world and to people around them. Their experiences lead them to have negative inner working models, and that means that their brain and nervous system believe in three things: that the world is unsafe, that the people are not to be trusted, especially the adults around them, and that they are not worthy of support or love from others. This is connected to Bowlby's work on attachment, and it shows that the experiences that children and young people have with their primary caregivers when babies, especially within the first 1001 days of their life, shapes the way that their brains and nervous systems work. If we believe that the world is not safe and that others cannot be trusted and that we're not worthy, this adds to the feeling of being unsafe and feeling of fear. This means that those children and young people are in a state of fear. This fear state that many children and young people are in are often due to early childhood experiences and trauma and can give rise to connections to gangs, county lines, sexual exploitation and membership of subculture groups as in substance misuse. This is because they're seeking belonging. They're targeted by gangs who understand that vulnerability and often leads to compliance in a fear state of belonging. Fear state belonging is when we cling to a group or an individual as it gives us this false potential of safety and belonging and the impression that we matter. This attraction happens as individuals may believe their needs will be met. This leads to compliance, it leads to individuals slipping into roles and then they conform to them. Some people also migrate towards unsafe relationships, and this may be because their early experiences of relationships were also unsafe. The feeling of disempowerment within these relationships perpetuate this silence and lack of empowerment, halts the ability to facilitate change for themselves. They get stuck. If you constantly have all needs met as an individual, you're in a flow state, a positive state of being. You're thriving and not just surviving. You have confidence and self-esteem. You're free to be who you truly are and to reach your potential in all aspects of life. However, as an individual, we can switch into being in a fear state when you're surviving, but often at the detriment to your well-being, growth and development, as we see in these vulnerable individuals who become involved in criminality. So what can we look at a community level? If you have all your needs met at a community level, then you have a partnership culture where you will look after others when you are resilient and you will be looked after by others when you're more vulnerable. In a partnership culture, there's a feeling of safety created by this. There's also a sense of belonging, that you matter because your presence is needed. Your ability to support others is needed. You have your needs met and you get positive experiences of interacting with others. But we can switch from being in a partnership culture to being in a domination culture where vulnerability increases for all. Gangs, county lines, sexual exploitation are domination cultures. Domination cultures are run on power and control, shame and blame, and above all, fear. When we think of education, schools can at any given time be operating in a domination culture where staff might feel unsafe and therefore stressed, or in a partnership culture where staff feel safe and therefore relaxed, and can switch between these as circumstances change. Only partnership cultures can engender cooperation, creativity and genuine learning. Partnership cultures meet those three core evolutionary needs to feel safe, to belong and to matter. If these needs are met, the individuals who are classed as vulnerable will experience positive, connected relationship with others. Getting their needs met will start a change in their inner working models to be more positive ones, raise self-esteem and therefore reduce their vulnerability to and their chances of becoming involved in criminality or becoming members of criminal gangs. The Compassion Prisons Project tells us that the most traumatised people in society are the ones within our prisons and criminal justice system. They believe that if all settings, such as prisons, but also education settings, are trauma-informed, attachment-aware and relational in their practice, then this can change and less vulnerable children and young people become involved in crime. They also believe that those working with vulnerable children, young people and families can have a huge positive impact upon the trajectory of those lives that are touched through their work by being attachment-aware, trauma-informed and relational in their practice. Partnership cultures involve positive, connected, healthy relationships, which can be a turning point for vulnerable individuals. It can be the difference between one path in life and another, and even just one key adult in a child's life can make all of the difference to the outcomes they experience. So when we link back to the quote from Cohen that we looked at in the beginning, the most powerful protective factors for those teenagers were how strong their sense of belonging had been in school and how strong their sense of belonging had been at home. We can assume this from all of the children and young people that we support. We need to reflect on what we do in our practice that nurtures this sense of belonging in both school and families. We need to nurture positive, connected relationships that meet needs and give children, young people and their families positive experiences. Just because a child or a young person is vulnerable doesn't mean they will become involved in criminal activity or part of criminal gangs. The tide can change at any time and we can be the facilitators of this change. And remember, on a daily basis, you are positively affecting children, young people and families' lives through your dedicated work.